Senators, may I remind you that when the House rose, the question in debate was the further extension of the resolution of Parliament approving the declaration of state of emergency.
I feel so. My stomach is bothering me. I don't know why. From morning. It's not violent. It's just unsettling. It's me. She's wondering who left them before. I thought I want to go at 3:50. I thought I want to leave at 3:50. So she made
Senator Ozil?
Yes, I signed it, but she doesn't recognize it. Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, Madam President, fellow senators. Welcome back, Senators Francis and Francis. I would take a minute to reinforce our collective condolences to our former senator colleague who buried his son just hours ago. It's the most unnatural thing for a parent to bury a child. We're not programmed for that, and we can see the toll it took on Senator Joachim Henry and his family, who were very brave, and we admire them for that. Madam President, to the matter at hand, I have some difficulty supporting this motion, not because it is unjustifiable, but because the case to justify it has not been convincingly made. I do not believe that the government, which is proposing to extend the state of emergency by 5 months, has made a convincing case, neither for the extension in principle, and certainly not for the duration of 5 months at all. Madam President, a state of emergency is an exceptional thing, and to toss it lightly about as if it is the most natural thing in the world is very, very worrisome. A state of emergency can only be granted under exceptional circumstances. And as we have labored through the current circumstances for some 15 or 16 months, depending on where you start to count, I do not think we are at the stage where a national state of emergency can be justified, given all of the evidence that is available to us, but more so given the evidence that has been presented to us in defense of this position. The state of emergency confers exceptional powers on the state, on the government apparatus, and on the actors who must enforce it. It is the most stringent imposition of state power over citizens, and it is not to be taken lightly. It should be a very last resort. And in the Constitution, it is so framed as an exceptional mechanism. It cannot be used as a standby mechanism. I think that is fundamentally wrong, and it is not acceptable. You cannot ask to buy a machine gun because you are afraid of ants. Despite the many deliveries in the House today, the only reason given for the state of emergency, the only reason given, which is germane to the argument, as if we were in a court of law arguing a case, is for the supposed maintenance of a curfew. In order for that argument to hold, it must not just be said over and over again as if it is gospel, but it has to be proven that the curfew itself is the one and only most important thing and the only mechanism at our disposal. If the state of emergency rests on that argument alone, the case has not been made. There are several other weapons in our arsenal for fighting COVID, and to have a state of emergency in place to justify a curfew as one of the possible things that you might need is not a convincing argument in my view, and the case has not been proven. So while it is true that there are offenders out there who need to be curtailed, who need to be controlled for not following protocols and other breaches of existing COVID-19 regulations, I do not believe that there is justification to curtail the freedoms of an entire population based on what a few offenders may or may not be doing after hours, during hours, or whatever. A sufficient case has not been presented in this Honorable House for the curtailment of civil liberty for the period under consideration. And I think that the government knows that it has not done its work convincingly to justify this extension, and I think the government knows that the people of St. Lucia will see it as a high-handed and excessive approach. And knowing that it is not on solid ground and cannot justify this position, the government nevertheless is continuing with the extension, despite what I believe is its own inherent discomfort. And so it is regretful that what we had today and on Tuesday, when this House met, when the lower house met, was a show of force outside the Parliament building. I think that is a sad state of affairs, and it is becoming a pattern that when an unpopular measure is to be debated in the House, there is this show of force against what we anticipate will be a show of defiance, and so it is placing the government at odds with the people, and I think that that is an uncomfortable position, particularly at this time. At this time of national crisis, we ought not to be at odds with our general population, to the point where lawmakers are sitting in the Parliament and they have to be defended by guns and ammunition on sidewalks. That is an untenable position and should not be the pattern. It is not the first time, and I have counseled previously about this approach to more autocratic government, that we must have the powers we need to do the things we need to do. Well, we should also have the confidence and trust of the people to do the things that we need to do, and not feel that we have to hide behind measures, draconian measures. A state of emergency is a draconian measure. It is so framed in the Constitution that only under exceptional circumstances and with exceptional authority is it to be invoked. This administration seems determined to proceed despite what itself anticipates as an unpopular reaction. And this is a dark and worrisome and disturbing juncture that we find ourselves at. There is a concept called the divine right of kings, and I would encourage anybody to look it up quickly. You can ask Siri or Google, but it's a political and religious doctrine of royal and political legitimacy, and it is a dangerous thing, and one cannot help but observe the disturbing imagery that is now occurring on social media tying the politics and the religious traditions of this country. Again, in an election season which is irrefutable. The emphasis for control and prevention is wrong. The emphasis on power and enforcement is wrong. We are bent on insistence that we shall have our way instead of dealing with, as has been mentioned, on both sides, the importance of persuasion, education, individual and community empowerment and responsibility. The extension of a state of emergency for a further 5 months, in my view, is high-handed, it is brash, and it seeks to prohibit fundamental freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. And it is following a pattern which I was already quite uncomfortable with when the COVID-19 legislation was going through, because the government has acquired and given itself, through questionable means, powers to infringe on the rights of citizens, and there is a progression now that is extremely worrisome. I shall speak on this a little later. So,
Madam President, I would like to start at a point of order. On 37, to impute ulterior motives, based on what the Senator has just said. I think the independent Senator, and I think maybe I may even have to take out the word independent, but the Senator really seemed to be regurgitating everything that the opposition senators have said, and has even gone further now to impute ulterior motives on behalf of the government. And I need him to withdraw the last statement that he made.
Senator Ozil.
yes, Madam President.
You wish to withdraw the statement? Are you withdrawing the statement?
I do not know what statement I am required to withdraw, Madam President.
Senator Francis, can you be precise about the statement you wish withdrawn?
Madam President, he just made a last statement that he made about the government, the attentions of the government and so on. And that's what I am asking that he should withdraw. He has it written in his laptop, and no, he just made the last statement there. And if he's so sure that he has not imputed any ulterior motive, he'd read it again. Just to clear out everything, any ambiguity is.
I can repeat, Madam President, and if there is a specific objection, I will be happy to have it identified to me. I'm expressing an opinion, I'm expressing an assessment. I'm describing what I see. And if I may, Madam President.
But Madam President, you keep talking about the infringement of rights of the citizens.
Let him conclude what he is saying.
Madam President, if I may, I do not think that if there is a coincidence of views between any senators in this House, that one's independence should be maligned on that basis.
Senator Francis.
My independence is not maligned when I agree with the government on things.
Madam President, the statements that have been made by the independent senator, if he wants to be referred as an independent senator, keep rehashing the very same things, that the fundamental rights and privileges of the citizens of this country has been infringed. Not for once has he given any indication as which rights and freedoms that have been infringed. So just to keep saying that does not hold water. You have to give examples of where the Prime Minister has abused his office, and we as a government have used the curfew to infringe on the rights of the citizens. Name one.
Proceed, Senator Ozil.
Thank you, Madam President. So, Madam President, the point is that if there is a curfew, it applies to all citizens regardless of their behavior, regardless of whether or not they are guilty of infraction or infringement. And therefore, it removes from all citizens a right which is enshrined in the Constitution, and I shall give details of exactly what those rights are shortly. So citizens who are law-abiding should not be compromised because the government cannot otherwise control those who are in contravention of the protocols. To have a broad sweeping measure such as a state of emergency, which then gives rise to a curfew or creates the atmosphere for a curfew, is to extend across all citizens a limitation on their ability to assemble, to gather, to move, to travel across the country.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Yes, Madam President. I stand on a point of order, Madam President, so that the Honorable Senator can explain to us where is it that the imposition, Madam President, the Senator is talking about the rights and freedoms of citizens, and that the state of emergency is infringing on the rights and freedoms of these citizens as per the Constitution, Madam President. But this is the same Constitution, Madam President, that explains why a declaration of a state of emergency would be called. And it doesn't say anything about infringing on anybody's rights. And it states, Madam President, clearly that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the occurrence of any earthquake, hurricane, flood, fire, outbreak of pestilence, or of infectious diseases. And we are talking about COVID-19, Madam President. So I do not see the relevance between the curfew, the state of emergency, and infringing on people's rights.
Proceed, Senator Ozil.
Did you say proceed, Madam President? Thank you very much, Madam President. So, Madam President, I would argue that if the state of emergency is justified on the basis that we need to have a curfew as part of our strategy for the COVID control, then we also should be focusing on other aspects of that strategy. Where, for example, is the plan for improving contact tracing? Why is there still resistance to second testing? How about getting people's results to them within 24 or 48 hours? Why don't we set that also as a national objective of our strategy? What is the continued resistance with rapid antigen tests, which we are quite happy to use to send our visitors back to the US because it is acceptable to them, but seems not to be acceptable to us? Can we not use antigen testing, the rapid antigen test, as a backup for the PCR, so that if somebody wishes to have it upon arrival, they can do so, and upon a second negative test, have the freedom to move about the country? Why have we not reconsidered the 14-day quarantine after a PCR test has been taken by inbound travelers? Why have we not incentivized the vaccine, for example, by considering options to the 14-day quarantine? Instead, we have an emphasis on locking people up after dark. What is the resistance to the second test regime? I would really like to know. If a traveler wants to have a second test, including returning nationals, upon entering the country, as a backup to the PCR test they have taken no more than 4 days earlier, they should have a right to do that, and upon receipt of 2 consecutive negative tests, be free to move about their country. The science is evolving and we are not. We have new information regarding travel risk, which we did not have 12 months ago, and we seem quite unwilling to take that information on board, that the spread of COVID related to travel has been proven to be quite minimal. We are not evolving our thinking, and so we are reaching back into the same old remedies, which are dubious, and I will say why. The emphasis on control is wrong, and it is a diversion from the real problem. Our numbers jumped at Christmas because of an influx of over 2,000 people. The authorities knew this would happen, and they did not take the sufficient measures to make it more controlled. As a result of that, the entire population, and this is my point, that the entire population is being made to pay for the sins of a few. And it is for somebody to stand up and say, no, a state of emergency is an exceptional measure. It is so framed in the Constitution, and it is not to be invoked lightly. And I do not think a sufficient case has been made for this extension for 5 months. If that view coincides with that of the opposition and other people in St. Lucia, then so be it. So people will ask, and they must ask, it is their duty to be vigilant and to ask on what basis is the government choosing this particular tool by itself and not proposing a comprehensive strategy which would add to the tools we have at our disposal for dealing with any potential flare-up of the disease. Why not extend for 60 days and return to the Parliament and return to the people and ask them for their compliance, because this is what good governance is about. It is about consulting with people and asking for their agreement. This is not it. A state of emergency can be implemented within hours if necessary, as we all know, and brought to the Parliament for ratification. Where is the emergency? If the numbers are coming down, if we are accelerating vaccination, there can be no logical justification for the extension of the state of emergency. And the government may have a case, but it has not brought that case to this House. And you cannot or should not justify a state of emergency, which is a drastic measure and is so framed in the Constitution as a drastic measure to be invoked under exceptional circumstances. You cannot bring that on the pretext of wanting to have a curfew or the right to implement and sustain a curfew as your only justification. I do not think that is acceptable. Autocracy is a dangerous thing, Madam President, and we have seen the rise of autocracy in governments across the world in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we have seen it here as well. The government has given itself exceptional powers, and let me list some of those. The right to detain citizens on suspicion, the right to censor communication in the public interest, the right to forbid assembly, the right to enter onto and commandeer private property, immunity from liability for itself, the waiver of rules of procurement for itself, the suspension of financial regulations for itself. These are the powers, and they are exceptional powers that the government has given to itself over the last 12 to 15 months. These are dangerous signs when taken all together. If they make people uncomfortable, then they have every right to say that they are uncomfortable. That is what democracy is about. So I would like, Madam President, to suggest that we preserve the right of our citizens to demonstrate. Somebody has asked whether or not we should have demonstrations. If the people choose to demonstrate peacefully, that too is their right, and they should not be deterred from doing it as long as they observe the law and they observe the protocols. So I think we are slipping away from normalcy. We are slipping further away from normalcy instead of having a strategy to return the country to normalcy. People need stability, they need predictability, they need reason, they need to understand why things are being done to them. And so it would be useful in debating a subject of this sort that we had a set of national guidelines which indicate how we as a country intend to tackle this situation. For example, we could say by May 30th, we will target that 50% of the population will be vaccinated, both shots. There will be voluntary second testing for visitors on arrival, that sites and attractions will be allowed to open under whatever specific conditions. By June 30th, curfew hours could be adjusted to 10 p.m. 60% of the population could be vaccinated. Restaurants allowed to open till 11 p.m. By August 30th, businesses saved, jobs reclaimed, household income recovering, assemblies of maybe 100 people permitted, arts and entertainment sector recovering. By September 30th, 70% of the population vaccinated, travel restrictions reviewed and revised as per the science, as per the facts, as per the protocols, as per global practice. That is what a comprehensive strategy looks like. bridging social, economic, and health imperatives, and giving people hope and information to live and plan their lives. Madam President, I'm not sure we have any evidence for blaming young people for the infection and death of older persons in their families and households. And I think that's a reckless assertion to make. This is dangerous, and I hope it is not informing government policy, that it is young people who go out and bring disease back and kill their relatives. I think that's reckless. Rights should only be curtailed under exceptional circumstances. This is my point. The case has not been made, ladies and gentlemen of this honorable House. The case maybe exists, but it has not been made. And to say that you want a state of emergency for the convenience of having a curfew or the right to implement a curfew in your back pocket in case it is needed, I'm sorry, that is buying a machine gun to kill ants. Thank you very much.
Senator Zakura.
Good afternoon, Madam President. Good afternoon, fellow senators. Let me add my voice to welcoming back the Francis Dewey back to the Honorable House. Madam President, with your permission, I would love a minute of our time to extend condolences to two of my colleagues who passed away during the past week. Do I have your permission? I would love to express condolences to two of my taxi driver colleagues, in Mr. Albert Pierre, who most persons in the taxi sector know as TX195, and Johnson Badal, TX228. Two of these gentlemen were from Savon Taxi Association, of which I'm a member. I would like to express condolences to the extended family and as well as the Savon Taxi family. Madam President, to the issue at hand, I rise in supporting this resolution. I think my love for people make it duty bound. Yes, leader of opposition business. My love for people and the protection of people, and also in my interest of serving people, that if we do not put measures in place to protect the people, just as Moses, when taking the people of Israel across from Egypt, had to call on the Lord for protection and had to put measures in place in order to protect the population before they got to Israel. The world and the leader of this world is bound in putting measures in place in protecting the citizens of this nation, because if we do not check ourselves, there will be no population to govern. And that is significant, and that is important. Madam President, we know for a fact that people are always resisting the effort of, or St. Lucians on the whole, we do not love the question of being asked to subject to rules and regulation. We find all means and ways of rebelling. That is the nature of us, and we cannot get away from this. Madam President, we are at a juncture right now in May of 2000, and 21, where, as far as the numbers are concerned, when it comes to COVID, we are, despite the gains that we have made over the January period, we are still worse off than where we were in September. And if there was justification for a state of emergency in September, I think it is even more prevalent now to continue this state of emergency. Madam President, we see the opposition is flip-flopping. Madam President, when we were at 29, it was said by the opposition that the government was boasting. When we went through the saga after the December period, we were told that the opposition celebrated too early. However, responsibility was not taken for the opposition not doing the right things and getting a loophole in the law. They were able to hold this match, this deadly match. Madam President, in the midst of COVID, we see how the returning of a candidate was celebrated. Madam President, we have too many examples before us that where we ought to take responsibility, we do not take the responsibility. Madam President, there are times we are asked to close the country. Let us close the country and let us all die a natural death of hunger. When the country is open, Madam President, or we are told that it should not be done this way. But the one thing I know, Madam President, as long as you get opposition and resistance from the opposition, it means that the government measures are good and they are working. Madam President, if they were not working, the opposition would have been happy that the government was heading down a precipice. And this is what the opposition would have been happy about. But we know that once you get opposition and you get resistance, it means that something good is happening. And the government elected by the people for the people should continue to take measures to protect the people. Sometimes when I listen to the opposition, I wonder if the government was not elected by the people. I know, Madam President, that we are at a juncture where everybody is excited, everybody is talking about election, but we still have COVID to deal with. And we all know the activities that precede a general election and the activities that is taking place during the election. Madam President, COVID-19 loves company. And this is what COVID-19 needs to spread. And we have seen it. We have seen several examples throughout the US with all the demonstrations, Carnival in Martinique, most recently India, where if we do not take these examples seriously, it means that the same mistake that we did in December will repeat itself, and our numbers will continue skyrocketing. So it is important, and I think for this reason, that I will support this state of emergency. I heard it is for election. do not know what other motive everybody else have, but I know that you need the people to vote for you, and you got to protect the people, and because the people have to be alive in order for them to vote for you. So at least it is good to have a state of emergency for elective purposes. Madam President, I think we've heard some good news with regard to the tourism sector of which I'm part. Our independent senator spoke about the sector. I think the opposition also spoke about the sector. Madam President, we've been struggling for over a year now. I get telephone calls all the time from my colleagues all over St. Lucia, and I know the hardship that they're experiencing. I know the Honorable Prime Minister have said that we need to manage this pandemic both in terms of preserving lives and livelihood. It is not an easy task when you have independent people that have depended on making things happen for themselves, not depending on government or not depending on handouts. And today, you have men and women of the tourism sector, particularly the taxi sector, which is really laboring. I think it would be a good day for most of us that depend on cruise tourism when we will see the day that cruise tourism can return to St. Lucia. As in everything else, Madam President, I think our team at the command center will put all the necessary protocols in place that our people will remain safe. Madam President, the protocol has worked, and at Hiwanura Airport, where Sovereign Taxi Association operate, and where the country has been open from July, that we have not registered not a single case whilst visitors were coming to this country. Not a single worker, whether immigration, whether customs, whether at CDSL. It clearly tells us that if we follow the protocol, that it is going to work. But we also have those among us that are not following the protocols. And Madam President, hence the reason why you have to have laws able to control the rebellious. That is the harsh reality, and the harsh reality is, as we go around St. Lucia, we see them. You can see what is happening. You can see the beaches. You can see nobody said do not drink alcohol, but you can see it's like, even though the government say grab and go, come on, nobody grab and go alcohol. People will assemble. And this is for the exact reason why I said COVID loves company. And if there is no company, COVID will not spread. So we need to follow the protocols very closely in order for us to achieve the required result. I think I would be more than happy when we can go back to the September period, where most unfortunately we had no deaths. But between September and now, Madam President, I think we have had 74, 75 deaths. Let me express my condolences to the family of those persons that have lost loved ones. We have lost loved ones all over the world, Madam President, and it is always sad for any family to be losing a loved one. And particularly, one of the difficulties of COVID is that you don't even see, you don't even know if you are burying your loved one. And that is the situation where we are in. As I conclude, Madam President, once again, I give my full support to this bill, and I am asking all St. Lucians, let us follow the protocols, and if we do this, COVID too will become history, and we will go back to our pre-COVID days. We will go back. Let me also, for you, Madam President, wish all the mothers of St. Lucia Happy Mother's Day. We can go back to the country and western dances on Mother's Day likewise. I know a lot of us, we are missing the country and western dances. But let us deal with this situation, and as soon as we are able to arrest this situation, we will be able to enjoy all the pleasures that remain for us. I thank you, Madam President.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. Fellow Senators, Madam President, if you will allow me, I wish to read Section 17(1) B and C to try and make the point or the need for us to re-establish a state of emergency to continue until October. Madam President, the declaration of emergency, 1, the Governor General may by proclamation, which shall be published in the official gazette, declare that a state of emergency exists for the purposes of this chapter. I will go down to B, Madam President. Well, I will read the full thing, Madam President. 2, a proclamation under this section shall not be effective unless it contains a declaration that the Governor General is satisfied, A, that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the imminence of a state of war between St. Lucia and a foreign state. B, that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the occurrence of any earthquake, hurricane, flood, fire, outbreak of pestilence, or of an infectious diseases or other calamity, whether similar to the foregoing or not. Or C, that action has been taken or is immediately threatened by any person of such a nature and on so extensive scale as to be likely to endanger the public safety or to deprive the community or any substantial portion of the community of supplies or services essential to life. Madam President, we are hearing over and over from the beginning of COVID-19 arguments against every measure that my government has tried to take to protect the lives and livelihood of our people. Madam President, there is absolutely no question as to whether or not we need that declaration of a state of emergency. We needed it when we set it then. We needed it when we extended on it the first time, the second time, and we need it now. Maybe now more than ever, Madam President, as we are seeing that the numbers are declining or at least remaining stable. We are still getting about, on average, about 100 cases per week, and that is still not satisfactory. While it is better than where we were before, it is still not satisfactory. Not satisfactory enough for us to loosen up on the protocols that we have that currently exist, which includes a curfew. Madam President, and I've heard a lot of talk about it's better now, therefore, why do we need the curfew? If you are on antibiotics, Madam President, for 10 days, and you start taking it and getting better, after the 3rd day you are much better. Madam President, do you stop? You have to continue, because the end result is to get rid of whatever it is that is in your system. And you require the 10 days of taking the antibiotics to do so. COVID-19 is still with us, Madam President. It is because of the measures that we have put in place that we are seeing some sort of, I don't even want to call it relief, Madam President, because it's just that the numbers seem to be remaining stable, declining a little and remaining stable. So this is just a semblance of a relief that we are seeing. We cannot drop our guard or let it down, because we can go back to a worse situation than where we were before. We know of Trinidad and Tobago right now. Our brothers and sisters there are really suffering. They're under tremendous pressure. We have Martinique, closer to home. We hear of India and we see what is happening. With such a large population, we cannot afford that in St. Lucia, Madam President. We would all be wiped out in a matter of 1 week. So for those people who are questioning the need for that curfew, I want to remind them to look at the news, the international news, and they will be quickly reminded of what can happen if we do not continue this measure that we are asking, that we are taking to this Honorable House today for approval. And Madam President, I know that it is the silly season, election is upon us. And you know, some of us bury our head in the sand and think that everything in life is about elections. But the workers at the Ministry of Health, Madam President, well, I worked at Commerce, I guess I'm still. The workers at the Ministry of Health, my ministry, Madam President, these are public servants. They are public officers who serve the public. They do not show any affiliation for either side. What they do is they work day in, day out to contain this virus. And while I heard the critics and the skeptics talking about this is not working, contact tracing is not working, somebody has not been called, 24 hours, they tested and no result, and so on and so forth, Madam President, nobody is saying that we are perfect. Nobody is saying we do not have gaps in the system. As a matter of fact, we worked every day at the ministry to try and address some of those gaps. And we are addressing them as quickly and as much as possible. So we know that there are gaps. And I will not say that some of my fellow senators have not fallen into those gaps themselves. But I know that the ministry, the staff are working assiduously, Madam President, to guard the lives and livelihood of our citizens in St. Lucia. And for that, I am eternally grateful. Madam President, the frontline workers are not just there being called frontline workers and being heralded for no reason. The international community keeps showing appreciation for the frontline workers because they know what it is that COVID can unleash on a population. But here in St. Lucia, we believe that everything is about elections, elections, elections. And we have a decombobulated opposition that refuse to accept and allow, they refuse to accept, Madam President, that we as a government must put things in place to ensure that our citizens are safe and our citizens are protected from this deadly virus. Madam President, we have not reached a point where we can comfortably remove the curfew. In order to continue the curfew, and I have heard that said so many times, Madam President, my Prime Minister has reiterated, myself, my fellow senators, fellow ministers, the people at the Ministry of Health continue to say that we need to continue the protocols. We need to continue this curfew so that we can continue to guard the health and safety of our citizens and our country. Madam President, and I know that many of our senators here today, opposition senators, independent senators, made a lot of suggestions, Madam President. And all of a sudden, we have a lot of people who are experts on COVID. Well, one thing I can assure you is that at the Ministry of Health, we do not have any COVID experts, and I am not a COVID expert, Madam President. But I have seen in the media, as well as here in St. Lucia, what COVID can do. Because right now, we are mourning the loss of 75 of our citizens, which is a very large number for a small island state such as ours. For a small island state, Madam President, that had 0 deaths up till September of last year. 0 casualties, Madam President. Up till September. And then we had a big march in October, and that was the beginning of our troubles, losing our people to COVID-19. And to this day, Madam President, we have an opposition that has refused to accept that responsibility. They still carry on at every chance they get to congregate and to encourage people to socialize, because they believe that the state of emergency is infringing on other people's rights. But as I read, Madam President, there is no infringement on anybody's rights when you have a global pandemic and everyone globally is trying to contain the virus. A little nation of 180,000 people surrounded by beaches, beautiful scenery everywhere, and just so that our people can wear their mask, wash their hands, sanitize, follow the protocols, and a 9 p.m. curfew, Madam President, and they are complaining so much. I have relatives, family, and friends in the diaspora, and in some countries, they have not been able to come out for over a year. Just a stone's throw away in Canada, you cannot come out. You cannot. Strict measures in a lot of the different provinces in Canada. Madam President, and here we are walking freely. We are free. Any more freedom and it could put us in jeopardy. Is that what we want, Madam President? Is that what we want for our people? So much freedom that we actually use that freedom and kill ourselves with it? What more freedom do we need right now? We need to overcome this virus. Madam President, we come here and I don't understand all the rhetoric and everything else. Elections? This curfew ends a few days after elections are constitutionally due. So what does it have to do with elections? You are opposition, we are in government. We both want to go out and you know, prepare for our elections and everything else. There's nothing that the opposition is going to do that we ourselves do not want to do. So what is it that we are depriving the opposition of that we are not depriving ourselves of? Elections, campaign, we can, Madam President, it's Bob Marley who said, "He who fights and run away lives to fight another day." Let us make the sacrifice now, Madam President, so that we can be here next year. We can be here in 5 years' time to have another election. Madam President, sometimes, Madam President, we bring legislation pertaining to COVID, and every time it has to do with COVID, Madam President, we get the same reaction. We get the same reaction. This is a global pandemic. We did not, the government of St. Lucia, the Prime Minister, Alan Michael Shastley, did not invent COVID-19. He did not bring it to St. Lucia. He did not call it on the people of St. Lucia. And he has done everything in his power to give us all the resources that we need to protect us and to protect our country. And how do we repay him? Criticism, Madam President. Name-calling, disrespect. And I heard the call for respect. Respect has to be mutual. It's both sides, Madam President. It cannot just be one-sided. We disrespect to the point where we disrespect ourselves. Name-calling. And we do not show appreciation for anything, Madam President. Not the hard work of the frontline workers. We say it, but do we really mean it? We come here and we thank the frontline workers. And in no time at all, we say the state of emergency is to serve election purposes. These are the same frontline workers, the same public workers who are making the recommendation, Madam President. It is not just coming from the Cabinet of Ministers. It comes to us just as we are bringing it to you. Madam President, my government is very concerned about the people of this country, their lives and their livelihood. And we talk about we need to release the people. We talk about the curfew, 5 months. The people are fed up. They feel oppressed. But Madam President, what is more oppressive than not being able to go out there and fend for yourself and work, put in your day's work so that you can get a fair day's pay to take home? Who wants to stay without work and get handouts from government? Who wants to be on these social programs? And the only way we can get off these programs, Madam President, is for us to reopen our economy and get everything back on track, go back to work. The cruise ships are already knocking on our door, Madam President, to get their workers to come back to work. That is an indication that the outside world is ready to open up again. And we in St. Lucia had better be ready when they come knocking, because our people desperately need those jobs. And the way to do it, Madam President, is to continue that curfew to ensure that if we need to act at any point in time at all, we are able to do so. The state of emergency provides us or gives us the latitude to be able to do so. That is the most effective and efficient piece of legislation that is going to allow us to do so. I have heard people, opposition, Madam President, senators, independent senators, talk about there's other legislation. But they never tell you what is the other legislation. Mention the name, tell us what it is, and then we will show you that it is not as impactful and as effective as it ought to be in this situation. It is not, Madam President, because we have looked at all of them. And my capable Attorney General is right here. I do not think anybody in this House can stand up to him. Maybe only you, Madam President, when it comes to his knowledge of the law. So, Madam President, let us stop creating all this mischief and pushing this mischief about there are other pieces of legislation that can be used. It is simple mischief, Madam President. When we keep saying that, so the public can hear us hear people say, there are other pieces of legislation you can use. What is wrong with using the state of emergency? We have never abused it, Madam President. All this time it has been instituted, not one infringement under the SOE, the state of emergency. So why are we so suspicious, Madam President? Why all the suspicion? Why all the mistrust? Is it that we don't trust ourselves? So if we were the ones in that position, given all that authority, isn't that we thinking that we may infringe on the people's rights using the SOE? So far, Madam President, we have not done it. This government has towed the line, and they have only utilized the state of emergency for the purpose for which it was intended. So where is the suspicion stemming from? Our own minds? Perhaps as the man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Madam President, there is much that can be said, and many questions that are asked, but every time we come to this honorable house, it's the same questions. Discombobulated, Madam President, that's what they are. Discombobulated people. Madam President, I'm still waiting to hear the questions that has not been answered. Because all the questions that I'm hearing, I've heard today, has been answered at one point or another. They speak of the Prime Minister traveling to Barbados. There are people who come to our country, Madam President, and we keep them in a bubble. We keep them in what is called a bubble. They come here to work, or to come to a meeting, a consultation, or a one-day event, 2 days, and they are kept in a bubble. And that is what happened when the Prime Minister visited Barbados. Although he has had both of his shots, the first and second shot, he went in a bubble. He went on the RSS. He did not travel with anybody else. And when he got there, he met all his meetings were at the airport, and he turned around and came back to St. Lucia. In the bubble, Madam President. And he did not hide to do it. We were aware. He went, he came back, he was in the bubble. Madam President, I heard fellow Senator St. Clair ask about what happened to the $20 million US for health system strengthening. Madam President, at the last sit-in, I made available an entire document from the Ministry of Health, a program that listed everything about that $20 million US. Nobody asked for a copy of the document. No one requested a copy of the document. I had 3 copies, Madam President. I went back to my office with all 3. None of the opposition senators or the independent senators asked for a copy of that document. When all the information is in that document, is it really true that you want to know what happened to that $20 million US, or you're just trying to create mischief? Senator, Madam President, through you, we do not come here to create mischief, Madam President. This is an honorable house. We come here to take care of the people's business. And unless this house is in order, Madam President, the rest of the country will not be in order. And sometimes we wonder why our young people go astray, or why our citizens behave the way they behave. If that is what we are expunging in this house, that is what is going to redound in our society, Madam President. So, Madam President, I hope that I have explained how the Prime Minister traveled to Barbados and back, and Barbados is also in our bubble. Barbados was in the bubble prior to now. At one time when the numbers went up high and they had some issues, they were removed, and Barbados is now back in our bubble. Madam President, we speak of herd immunity. And of course, that depends on our vaccine efforts in country. I said earlier on that we are expecting to get 100,000 vaccines within, and 100,000 vaccines that's purchased by the government of St. Lucia, and another 50,000 vaccines that's going to be given to us from the COVAX mechanism. And we are expecting both of these shipments within this week, and of course, towards the end of this month. So our vaccine effort is extremely important, Madam President, for us to obtain that herd immunity that we are talking about. And we are looking at being able to vaccinate at least about 108,000 people so that we can accomplish that task. Madam President, this is something that we have to look forward to. All the people who are interested in us developing our economy, continuing to create jobs, because it is at that point that we will be able to open up our economy so that we can go back to a more or less normal lifestyle living with COVID. Madam President, because of the nature of COVID-19, we are not able to have a plan to say we are going to open certain things this week and next month, and so on and so forth. We have to deal with this pandemic one step at a time. We are also guided by the international community and the agencies that we are a part of. That is PAHO, WHO, CAFA, and of course all the CMOs in the region are linked up together where they get together and exchange experiences so that they can decide on the way forward in each of the separate islands, Madam President. And Madam President, I heard our opposition senator mention the 7-point plan that the leader of the opposition presented. But I want to ask the question, Madam President, when in our lifetime have we ever had a government in office embrace as any set of plans from the opposition? They consult, Madam President, we consult, and together we may arrive at certain decisions. But it is not for you to hand out a 7-point plan to this government and think that the government will take it and implement your 7 points. We are leaving that for you. You were just in office recently. If you had a 7-point plan, why didn't you implement it? Why give it to us now to implement? So you have a COVID 7-point plan, and then the technocrats at the Ministry of Health, and WHO and PAHO, and all of these other agencies and institutions responsible for COVID cannot come up with a plan that includes your 7 points. I believe most of your 7 points pertaining to COVID, those pertaining to COVID, were already embraced. So I do not see the emphasis on that 7-point plan, the 7-point plan, the 7-point plan. Discombobulated, Madam President, that's what they are, a bunch of discombobulated people. And even, Madam President, to mention Flambeau Fridays, a very new idea that just started this past Friday. The Prime Minister walked in, Madam President, with his mask on. When he started dancing and started getting hot and couldn't breathe, he removed it and danced. Then he put it back on when he was leaving, Madam President. But it is very convenient to say the Prime Minister was dancing without his mask. That is so disingenuous, Madam President. Disingenuous, mischief. Madam President, the private sector, our business community, the majority of whom understand the rationale for the curfew, also embrace the state of emergency. After all, Madam President, it is not that we have so many businesses operating outside of the curfew hours. And as such, it is a welcome measure for most people in the country. I have only heard good things about the 9 p.m. curfew, and we will do everything we can to ensure that we maintain that curfew until we see the figures at a point where we are satisfied that we can release that curfew. We can remove that curfew. But for now, Madam President, the science is saying to us we need this curfew, and the basis for the curfew, the legal basis for the curfew is the state of emergency. Madam President, we went from the best managed in the region up till September, and by December, you heard from the opposition all the time, we are the worst in the region, but they don't say why. How many other countries in the region, in the OECS, decided, how many opposition parties in the region decided to have a march during this pandemic when the country was trying to contain the virus? How many of them? Did the opposition in Barbados do that? Of course, they hardly have opposition. But we have Dominica, St. Kitts, all the other islands. Did any opposition in any of the other islands decide to have a march during COVID-19? Tell us, Madam President. And then you hear, independent senator spoke about trust. People don't trust politicians, the leaders, there's suspicion. And you know, the people you hear saying that is mostly on the opposition side, you know. The people who gave this government the mandate to run this country, it's because they trust the government. In 2016, they trusted us more than you, and this is why we are here today, on this side of the house. That is trust. The largest numbers that ever came out to vote, that is trust. That's how you measure trust. That is trust, and it's going to happen again, Madam President. Because if it wasn't for COVID, Madam President, the opposition better thank God for COVID. Why I say that? Because without COVID, Madam President, we would have accomplished so much in this country. Madam President, the people would have taken you all to the sea and told you all, sail away. So, Madam President, while COVID is a very dangerous disaster to most countries, or all countries, that downtime sometimes is not a bad thing. It has brought some families closer together. And of course, like I said, it has stalled a lot of projects. And as a result, Madam President, we now have to campaign. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have to campaign, Madam President. We would just have, you know. I am trying to see, Madam President, if there are any other, those who say that government has not, we heard about testing, increasing testing. Madam President, we do not just go about testing people. People have to show symptoms, or people must have a reason to believe that they have contracted COVID before you test them. And this is where the opposition speaks on one side, but on the other side, they're saying the opposite. You speak about people's rights, you want us to just go and hold people and test them. Tell them, come in for tests. 1 test, 2 tests, second testing. So every day we call in people, come, we need to test you all. Madam President, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. You test people if they have symptoms, if they have been exposed. Our contact tracing team, I must applaud them. Because people who interact with them, Madam President, tell you how hard these people are working. They will never be able to check everybody or to, bring everybody on board. There are gaps, we're saying that. These are our own people that are working hard. The contact tracing team, Madam President, these are hard workers. They go without lunch, sometimes dinners, sometimes they don't see their family. By the time they get home, the kids are sleeping. Just so that they do the right thing. They get all the people that they can to bring them in and not allow them to keep spreading the diseases. And we need to be thankful and grateful for that, Madam President. For some people, it's not just about salary. People talk about antigen tests and PCR. Madam President, we have so many experts in the house. So many experts in this country, I tell you. It's like everybody has gone to COVID school. All of a sudden. The opposition, they have it down packed, Madam President. COVID school, perfect scores coming out of that, graduated and all. Antigen test versus PCR test. The antigen test is not an accurate test. So when a person presents with symptoms, you cannot just use an antigen test and test that person and feel confident that that person is negative or positive. You can get a false positive, a false negative with an antigen test. The PCR test is the test. And on occasion, now we still use the antigen test. We have given some healthcare institutions permission to use the PCR test, such as Tapia Hospital. They use it at Grosile Polyclinic, depending on what the situation is, Madam President. Now we have some workers who are getting ready to go back and work on the cruise ship, and the cruise ships, they have requested the antigen test, and therefore we will be giving them the antigen test because they take it and they leave the country. These workers would not necessarily need any test because they are just citizens in the country. They don't have COVID. But for them to go out to work, they need that test. So they will be given, we are facilitating them in getting that test done. So it is not just to come here and talk about why not an antigen test and a PCR test, you know, to confuse the public. Let the technocrats deal with the technical issues. Let us stick to the legislation in this House. And of course, the explanations. Second testing, we hear it called for all the time because Barbados is doing it. But we locked down, Barbados was open for business for the longest while. Our model is not going to be any other person's model. Just like everybody have their management style, they have their leadership style, Madam President. We are in government to govern. And we have our own way of doing so. And in most cases, we have the people to consider. It is the people's lives that we put first. It is the people that we put first. They are the ones we care about. So we will use the tool that is the most efficient for us to get the result we want, and that is the SOU, because it allows us to continue with the curfew. And Madam President, I explained that elections are supposed to be called, Madam President. I will go according to what the Constitution says, Madam President. 56, holding of elections, Madam President. In conclusion, I will just go over that section just to elucidate because it came up. It says a general election of members of the House shall be held at such time within 3 months after any dissolution of Parliament as the Governor General may appoint. The dissolution of Parliament is on July the 12th, 2021. And what is 3 months after that? We are in October. So when I hear people say election is due in June, we're not talking 6/6/16 here, Madam President. We are not talking 6/6/16. We are talking about an election which is constitutionally due as per the Constitution of St. Lucia. And that is what I just read here. July 12th was the first sitting. Therefore, 3 months after the first sitting of the House, 5 years, 3 months after the first sitting of the House. So let us not confuse the population. Let us not confuse our own people. Instead, let us educate. Let us bring up the level. Let us be a little bit more aerodynamic, Madam President. Take it up a notch. If they are down there, let us lift them up and explain to them and educate them. Let us not try to create confusion, Madam President. And this is what the opposition is best for, Madam President. The opposition Labour Party is best for creating confusion, Madam President. So the curfew ends days after the final date of election. October the 12th, it ends October the 16th. So you can see the disconnect between the people who are suggesting the curfew, the people who are proclaiming that we need that curfew, and the politics. The two are not the same thing. The people at the Ministry of Health, the people in the command center do not care about elections. They do not care about our politics. They are about COVID-19 and what is going to work for us to contain the virus, reopen our economy so that people can again be proud of who they are. People can start being proud of themselves, working for a living instead of taking handouts from government and everywhere else. That is what this is about, fellow senators. It is about people's pride, maintaining their pride and dignity, and bringing our country back to where it was prior to COVID. And we know where that was. Madam President, I want to take this opportunity to say to all the St. Lucian public who listens to us that they need not allow the Labour Party to bamboozle them into thinking that we are doing something wrong in this House. What we are doing here is we are extending the state of emergency, which is the legal instrument that is going to give us the authority to institute the curfew, in this case, to extend the curfew for an additional 4 months. And that curfew can easily be curtailed, it can easily be stopped, we can easily call off the curfew if we reach a point where we are satisfied that the numbers of COVID cases in the country have declined to a point where we are comfortable enough to stop the curfew. This is all it is, Madam President. There's nothing more behind it. It has nothing to do with elections, because we can call off the curfew at any time. So, Madam President, I hope I have made the point here emphatically enough. I believe that there is no further justification that is necessary for us to see and agree that we need to extend the state of emergency and that it is not posing any threat to the lives and livelihoods of our citizens in this country. Thank you, Madam President.
Senators, the question is that Parliament further extend for an additional period of 5 months, commencing from the 17th day of May 2021 and ending on the 16th day of October 2021, in accordance with Section 17(6) of the Constitution of St. Lucia, Chapters 1.01, the Constitution of St. Lucia, Resolution of Parliament approving declaration of state of emergency, passed as statutory instrument number 38 of 2021, that extended the state of emergency for an additional period of 90 days, commencing from the 11th day of February 2021 and ending on the 16th day of May 2021. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think
Madam President, I wish to
Leader
call
of Opposition Business.
Madam President, I wish to call for division on this motion.
Division, Madam President.
Senator Dr. Adrian Ogier, how do you vote? Senator Fortuna Belrose, how do you vote?
Yes.
Senator Gideon Ferdinand, how do you vote?
No.
Senator Herman Francis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Senator Mary Isaac, how do you vote?
Yes?
Senator Lisa Joair, how do you vote?
No.
Senator Francisco Jean-Pierre, how do you vote?
Yes.
Senator Angelina Polius, how do you vote?
Yes.
Senator Mauricia Thomas Francis, how do you vote? Senator Terence St. Clair, how do you vote?
No.
Thank you. The count on division is as follows. Aye, the number of ayes 6, the number of noes 4. I think the ayes have it. Bills. Bills? Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Counter-trafficking Amendment.
Counter-trafficking amendment.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Senators, the question is that Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Minister to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled Counter-trafficking Amendment. Madam President, this amendment is to amend the penalties in sections 5, 6, and 7 of the Counter-trafficking Bill. It is to remove the penalties of a fine in each instance and to impose terms of imprisonment which will allow for a more stringent penalty to the prosecution of counter-trafficking offenses. Madam President, in Section 5, the option to pay a fine not exceeding $100,000 is removed, leaving the term of imprisonment not exceeding 5 years. In Section 6, the option to pay a fine of up to $10,000 is removed, leaving the term of imprisonment for up to 2 years. Similarly, in Section 7, the option to pay a fine of $100,000, leaving the custodial sentence of imprisonment of up to 5 years. Madam President, this is a very short and explicit amendment, and I am submitting the Counter-trafficking Amendment Act for the approval of this Honorable Senate.
Senators, the question is that the Counter-trafficking Amendment Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Senator Francis.
Madam President, this is a very short bill, but it is a very important piece of legislation that we have passed today. We want to pass today. The international community has been advocating that we remove the fines and to impose just a term of imprisonment. Now that St. Lucia is at tier, when we came in as a government, we were at tier 3. And because of the strides that the Ministry of Home Affairs had made, we are now in tier 2. Having done this piece of legislation, I am hoping that now the international body will recognize that we are in line with what they have been preaching, and so we can go to tier 1. I think this is a very, very important piece of legislation. Thank you.
Senators, the question is that the Counter-trafficking Amendment Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it.
An act to amend the Counter-trafficking Act, Cap 3.17.
Clause 2. Senators, we will take it by clauses. Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3.
Amendment of Section 5.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4.
Substitution of Section 6.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 5.
Amendment of Section 7.
Clause 5 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Senators, the question is that the committee rise and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senators, I beg to report that the Counter-trafficking Amendment Bill went through committee stage without amendments. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the Counter-trafficking Amendment Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same as follows. This act may be cited as the Counter-trafficking Amendment Act 2021.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Companies Amendment.
Companies Amendment.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Senators, the question is that the Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Minister to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled Companies Amendment. Madam President, the bill for consideration is the Companies Amendment Bill. The purpose of the amendment is to amend the Companies Act, Cap 1301, Clause 3 of the bill amends Section 18 of the Act, restrictions on exercise of powers, to provide for the restrictions against a company before commencing business. Clause 4 of the bill amends Section 59 of the Act, Secretary, to provide that a company must send to the Registrar of Companies and Intellectual Property a notice of Secretary or Assistant Secretary within 90 days of its incorporation in the prescribed form and accompanied by the prescribed filing fee. Currently, Madam President, this notice must be filed within 1 month after commencing operations. Clause 5 of the bill amends Section 64 of the Act, Bylaws and Bylaw Powers, to provide that a company must file its bylaws within 90 days of its incorporation and accompanied by the prescribed filing fee. Currently, Madam President, it is required to do so within 60 days. Clause 6 of the bill amends Section 69A of the Act, Notice of Beneficial Owners, to change the time for which a notice of beneficial owners is submitted to the Registrar of Companies and Intellectual Property. As such, a company is required to file a notice of beneficial owner within 90 days after its incorporation, as opposed to at the time of its incorporation, where this information may not be available. This notice must be accompanied by the prescribed filing fee. It goes on, Madam President, to change Clause 6, where it is required for a company to be licensed and regulated by the Financial Services Regulatory Authority under the Financial Services Regulatory Authority Act, Cap 1223, to send a notice of the beneficial owner to the Registrar of Companies and Intellectual Property is removed, as this information is already required under the Registered Agent and Trustee Licensing Act, Cap 1212, from a registered agent or trustee who acts on behalf of those types of companies that are regulated under the Financial Services Regulatory Authority Act, Cap 1223, and not under the Companies Act, Cap 1301. Clause 7 of the bill amends Section 77(1) of the Act, Notice of Change, to include a requirement for a company to give the Registrar of Companies and Intellectual Property notice in the prescribed form of a change of its beneficial owners within 15 days of the change. Madam President, Clause 8 of the bill introduces a new clause, 517A, to empower the registrar to grant an extension of time of no more than 90 days where an act is required to be done and is not or cannot be done by the time period specified in the Act. Clause 9 of the bill, Madam President, amends Section 521 of the Act, Service on Company, to include a provision empowering the Registrar of Companies and Intellectual Property to effect service on a company by a notice published in the Gazette. Clause 10 of the bill amends Section 523 of the Act, Prohibited Name, to prohibit a person from reserving a company name which suggests or implies a connection with the Crown, the government, a ministry, a department, or activity of the government, unless consent in writing of the proposed name is obtained from the ministry who is responsible for the sector. That clause, Madam President, therefore, is saying that we require consent from the relevant Crown agency in order to be able to act. Madam President, I submit the Companies Amendment Bill to this Honorable House for approval.
Senators, the question is that the Companies Amendment Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to amend the Companies Act, Cap 1301.
Again, we will take it by clauses. Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3.
Substitution of Section 18.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4.
Amendment of Section 59.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 5.
Amendment of Section 64.
Clause 5 stands part of the bill. Clause 6.
Amendment of Section 69A.
Clause 6 stands part of the bill. Clause 7.
Amendment of Section 77.
Clause 7 stands part of the bill. Clause 8.
Insertion of new Section 517A.
Clause 8 stands part of the bill. Clause 9.
Amendment of Section 521.
Clause 9 stands part of the bill. Clause 10.
Amendment of Section 523.
Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Senators, the question is that the committee rise and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senators, I beg to report that the company's amendment bill went through committee stage without amendment. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the company's amendment bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same, as follows. This Act may be cited as the Companies Amendment Act 2021.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Money Services Business Amendment.
Money Services Business Amendment.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Senators, the question is that Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Minister to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled Money Services Business Amendment. The Money Services Business Amendment Act, Cap 1222, provides for 5 categories of money service business. These categories include a Class A license for the transmission of money value in any form, issuance, sale, or redemption of money orders or travelers' checks, check cashing, or currency exchange. 2, a Class B license for the issuance, sale, or redemption of money orders or travelers' checks, check cashing, or currency exchange. 3, a Class C license for check cashing. 4, a Class D license for currency exchange. And 5, a Class E license for money lending. This amendment will make provision for a new category of license, which is Class F license for a money service business that engages in lending. The F license is for financial institutions that engage in money lending or granting credit facilities in excess of $50,000 without soliciting, receiving, or accepting monetary deposits, investment, or other instruments from the public to finance a loan. This amendment requires a business that engages in lending to be licensed under the Act. The application and annual license fees that will be applicable to a Class F license as specified in the amendments of section 25619 and in Schedules 1, 3, and 4 of the Act. Other provisions of the Act are amended to require a person engaging in lending to make an application for a Class F license and to ensure compliance with the requirements for filing returns under the Act. This new Class F license will also facilitate the licensing of financial agencies conducting banking business as defined under Section 2 of the Banking Act number 3 of 2015, since the granting of a license under Section 14(1)A of the Banking Act would result in the revocation of a license from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank to such agencies. The definition of banking business under Section 2 of the Banking Act is A, the business of receiving funds through the acceptance of monetary deposits which are repayable on demand or other notice or any similar operation, the frequent sale or placement of bonds, certificates, notes, or other securities and the use of such funds, either in whole or in part, for extension of credit or investment for the account and at risk of the person doing such business. Any other activity recognized by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank as banking practice and which a licensed financial institution may additionally be authorized to do, such as, Madam President, financial agencies that do not receive funds through the acceptance of monetary deposits do not satisfy the definition of banking business in St. Lucia. Madam President, such situation constitutes a money laundering risk to St. Lucia. With this amendment, this will be eliminated, Madam President. With this said, Madam President, I submit this very short amendment to this Honorable House for approval.
Senators, the question is that the Money Services Business Amendment Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to amend the Money Services Business Act, Cap 12.22.
Again, we will take it by clauses, Senators. Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Aye. Clause 3.
Amendment of Section 2.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Aye. Clause 4.
Amendment of Section 5.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Aye. Clause 5.
Amendment of Section 6.
Clause 5 stands part of the bill. Aye. Clause 6.
Amendment of Section 19.
Clause 6 stands part of the bill. Aye. Clause 7.
Amendment of Schedule 1.
Clause 7 stands part of the bill. Aye. Clause 8.
Amendment of Schedule 3.
Clause 8 stands part of the bill. Aye. Clause 9.
Amendment of Schedule 4.
Clause 9 stands part of the bill. Aye. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Senators, the question is that the committee rise and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senators, I beg to report that the Money Services Business Amendment Bill went through committee stage without amendment. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the Money Services Business Amendment Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same, as follows. This Act may be cited as the Money Services Business Amendment Act 2021.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Tourism Stimulus and Investment Amendment.
Tourism Stimulus and Investment Amendment.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Senators, the question is that Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Minister to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled Tourism Stimulus and Investment Amendment. The Tourism Stimulus and Investment Facilities Investment Amendment Bill, Madam President, facilitates development and improvement in the tourism sector. The Act currently requires applications for an approved development to be submitted prior to March 31st, 2021. This amendment serves to amend the Act and seeks approval to extend the time period by which applications can be made to include a time period prior to the 31st day of March 2024. This will allow our businesses in the tourism sector an additional 3 years to develop and augment their products and services offerings. I submit this amendment for the approval of my fellow senators in this honorable House.
Senators, the question is that the Tourism Stimulus and Investment Amendment Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An Act to amend the Tourism Stimulus and Investment Act, Cap 1503.
Again, we will take it by clauses. Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3.
Amendment of Section 3.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4.
Amendment of Section 2.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Senators, the question is that the committee rise and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senators, I beg to report that the Tourism Stimulus and Investment Amendment Bill went through committee stage without amendment. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the Tourism Stimulus and Investment Amendment Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same, as follows. This Act may be cited as the Tourism Stimulus and Investment Amendment Act, 2021.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, if I may just crave your indulgence to wish everybody in St. Lucia a happy Mother's Day and a happy weekend. I want to remind them, or remind all of us, to please follow the protocols so that we can live to see many more Mother's Days to come. So happy Mother's Day, everybody, because even some of the fathers also play the role of moms, a lot of them in our community. So I wish to take this opportunity, Madam President, to extend a happy Mother's Day to yourself, all the mothers in the house, as well as the fathers. On that note, Madam President, I move that the Senate stand adjourned, sign the die.
Senators, the question is that the Senate do stand adjourned, sine die. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting adjourned.
Thank you for staying with the broadcast. We've come to the end of the sitting of the Senate. The motion down for consideration was, be it resolved that Parliament further extends for an additional period of 5 months commencing from the 17th day of May 2021 and ending on the 17th day of October 2021 in accordance to Section 17(6) of the Constitution of St. Lucia, Cap 1.01, the Constitution of St. Lucia, Resolution of Parliament approving Declaration of State of Emergency, passed statutory instrument number 38 of 2021 that extended the state of emergency for an additional period of 90 days, commencing on the 11th day of February 2021 and ending on the 16th day of May 2021, was passed and was approved by Parliament. The following bills down for consideration were the Counter-trafficking Amendment, Companies Amendment, Money Services Business Amendment, and the Tourism Stimulus and Investment Amendment. All bills went through all the stages and were passed. Thanks once again for joining the broadcast, and on behalf of the NTN GIS team, do have a good night.